What's going on, y'all? So today we are back in Nashville, Tennessee, which means we're back to noisy place. So we're gonna have to deal with that as best we can. But today we're gonna talk about something kind of cool. We're gonna start a whole series. Hang on, let me put this camera down. Let's talk guitar tuners because it's probably one of the most important things you can have. So there's gonna be probably more than one video. In this video, we are going to break down the different kinds of guitar tuners and what does chromatic mean? How does a strobe work? What does polyphonic mean? How accurate does a tuner need to be? These are all questions because when you look on Amazon or you look on Sweetwater, there are bajillions of tuners. There are copies of tuners. What specs are important? What should you look for? And of course, there's the different types of tuners. So you have the clip-on, you have the pedal tuner, you have a desktop or a rack mount tuner. Which one is best for you? Hey, before we get started, make sure you hit the like button, because if you like guitar stuff, then you should hit the like button, because that's what we do here. And hitting the like button does a couple things. It helps my channel because it tells YouTube that you like the video, so it shows it to more people. But the other thing that it does that I don't think you realize, if you like stuff, then it doesn't show you as much as the stuff that you don't like. So it makes your viewing experience better too. So hit the like button. Okay, so in order for us to understand how tuners work, we need to understand what we're actually measuring, okay? So there's two things about sound we need to understand. There's always two things that we want to look at. The amplitude, which is how loud it is. So the louder something is, the taller the sine wave or the sound that we've recorded. We'll just use a simple one here, but it doesn't usually look like this. It's very messy. Anyway, the sound that we've recorded, here it is, as tall as it is the amplitude. Very much like how loud that train is right now as it comes by. Since the train is coming by, let's also talk about frequency. Frequency is the measurement of how many cycles that sound, how many sound waves basically, that sound has made in a particular amount of time. So the low frequencies of that train rumbling are going to look like this. There's going to be fewer cycles happening over a given period of time. That's a lower frequency. These ridiculously loud cicadas, or maybe the squeal that the train wheels make on the track, are very high frequency. They cycle through the air a lot faster. You can actually fit more of them in a particular amount of time. The more you can fit in a particular amount of time, the higher the frequency. Low frequencies are slower, high frequencies are faster. Waiting on the train to pass. In case you're wondering, it's actually not that loud in the motorhome. You can kind of hear the train, but we've stayed here a few times, kind of used to it. I would shoot inside because it's probably quieter, but then there's Leslie having meetings and stuff. She has Zoom meetings a lot and stuff, so, you know, it is the part of sharing a small space in a motorhome all the time. Okay, there's a lull. How does a guitar tuner make use of these frequencies, capture them, and help us tune the guitar? Basically, there's a computer in most newer tuners that has basically a preset clock, and it knows how fast or slow a frequency should be. To make it easy, we're just gonna say A440, even though we don't actually tune an open string to A440. That's a whole nother conversation. But let's just use that as an example. A440, that means that sound is gonna move back and forth. You're gonna have 440 of those over a second. That computer that's in that tuner knows that. So then when you pluck the string on your tuner, there is a little crystal in there usually called a piezo crystal that senses the vibration and converts the vibration of the string to an electrical impulse that then the computer can reference. That's faster than it needs to be, or it's slower than it needs to be. If it's faster than it needs to be, the note is sharp. If it's slower than it needs to be, the note is flat. That is the simple terms of it. There's a cicada right there in that tree being super loud right now. The three types of tuners that we usually think of are the chromatic style, a polyphonic style, and a strobe. Without getting ridiculously into the weeds here, basically a polyphonic tuner is going to tell you if you're off of pitch nearest to the nearest semitone, if that makes sense. So if we're tuning a guitar with a chromatic clip tuner, we clip it on the peg head, we pluck the string, it senses the vibration, and basically what it does is it references it to that clock to the nearest semitone. What that means is we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? But those are whole tones. Semitones would be like D, D sharp, E, right? So each fret on the guitar, for guitar purposes, is a semitone. So it senses the nearest one, references that, and then tells you if you're flat or if you're sharp, right? That's what that needle or those LED lights do. Once it goes past a half a semitone, it'll bump up to the next one. That's why you can be tuning and it'll go E, or then it'll go down to D sharp, and then it'll start tuning to D sharp, and then it'll go down to D, and it'll start tuning to D. You see what I'm saying? A semitone at a time. A polyphonic tuner is, TC Electronic pretty much pioneered this, I think. Basically, it's some kind of voodoo. Korg has it too, where when you strum all 6 strings, they reference each other as well as the known quantity frequency, and tells you which one string could be out of tune of all of your 6. So you strum all 6 of them, and then it can tell which one is out of tune, and you can actually adjust it as a whole. Now, a strobe tuner is very, very cool. A strobe tuner is basically a computer that has an LED or some other light thing, some other light emitting sort of thing, LCDs these days, TFT displays, that kind of stuff. But it will actually flash at the preset frequency that we're trying to tune. Then as our inputted frequency comes in front of that, and as those frequencies align, that strobing motion stops. It is incredibly, incredibly accurate. So let's talk about accuracy versus not. How accurate do we need to be? That cicada was right there. Oh, it was loud. So studies have shown that a human being cannot see or hear the difference in pitch between about 5 cents. Well, what is a cent? A cent is 1/100th of a semitone. So if you go from one fret to the next fret on your guitar, that is 1 semitone. So theoretically, you should not be able to hear the difference between 5/100ths of a fret being off. Now there's a little of a misnomer here, because most people cannot pick out of nowhere. Now there are people that are very trained and they can get down to like 2 cents, but most people cannot pick out of the air a pitch difference between 5/100ths of a fret or down to 2/100ths of a fret. The problem is that when you play 2 notes together in harmony, we can hear that much more. So if you might be able to say, I can't tell the difference between 5/100ths when I pluck 1 string, but if I pluck 2 strings, or if I pluck an octave, now I can really hear it. So our tuners need to be way more accurate than 5/100ths of a semitone. So now the question is, you're shopping for a tuner, what specs do you need to look at, and what ones really matter, and how picky do we need to get with this for whatever our use case is? Let's look at a few. So here's what I did. I actually went and bought a whole bunch of tuners. So we're gonna look at a few of these, and we're gonna talk about some specs, and then I'm gonna tell you what the plan is. Let's start with some of the cheaper ones. So we've got the Sound My really, really inexpensive Amazon tuner. According to their website, the specs for this baby say 0.5 cents. So basically that's half of 1/100th of a fret that this can tune to an accuracy of that level. 0.5. That sounds pretty good. Now we have the Fender PCT2, I think it's FCT2 tuner. Very inexpensive. Probably comes in a lot of guitar kits and like, you know, that sort of stuff. The lowest number I could find on this was 1 cent. So not quite as good as this one. The Moore CT01 was 0.5 cents also. I could not find a published number on the D'Addario micro clip tuner. And I also could not find a published number on the general issue Snark that everybody knows. I think these are two fairly popular ones. So I couldn't find numbers on those. My guess would be that they're probably somewhere between 0.5 and 1 cent because they're not publishing any numbers. Anybody with super low numbers are wanting to publish them. Now I did not buy this time, but I bought it a few months ago. This is probably my favorite tuner. This is the Pitch Clip 2 tuner by Korg. This little dude, for as cheap as it is, 0.1 of a cent. So we're talking 1/10 of 1/100th of a fret that this little dude can get down to accuracy-wise. We have a bunch of different stuff, and then of course some of it comes down to like convenience and how it looks and brand loyalty and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people really like Snarks. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do another video where we dive into each one of these things and talk about reliability and talk about the comparing them between each other, as well as some other types of tuners as well that I actually have on order. Because, you know, like a lot of times people will say, well, I can't tune in loud environments because the vibrations come over and affect the little clip tuner, that sort of stuff. We're gonna test all of that. I think I have a way to do that. We're gonna try to figure it out. We're gonna test all that. We're gonna do a little shootout. But for now, spec-wise, on paper, the Korg Pitch Clip 2 rates the best of all this little pile of little tiny tuners. I'll leave a link to all of them in the description of this video. They're not very expensive if you want to try this experiment right along with me, or if you have used any of these tuners, there's links to them all so you know which one I'm using. Let me know what your experience has been. Loud situations, quiet situations, tuner accuracy against other brands. So if you're playing in a band with another guitar player who uses a different brand, are you accurate enough to play together? All those things are important. Then of course reliability and durability and that kind of stuff. Let me know what you have found and what your favorite type of tuner is in the comments below. And then in a couple upcoming videos, we're also going to talk about app tuners, floor tuners, all that sort of stuff. But I was thinking that just because these are the cheapest entry-level ways to go and the most common, we're going to start with clip tuners. Thanks for hanging out. My name is Dylan. This has been Dylan Talks Tones. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe if you want. And check out all of our other videos that we got coming out, because we got some pretty cool stuff coming out very soon. I'm going to do an Epiphone Gibson shootout, I think. I got some other kind of stuff too. I think you're going to dig it. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you soon.